Hello and welcome to the Enduro World Series show, the show that brings you the inside line on the very best action from all the EWS racing. This weekend we are in the beautiful Burke, Vermont for our first ever visit to the east coast of America, where the riders have been treated to both beautiful scenery and some red hot bike racing. This week, coming up on the show, we will be bringing you all the highlights from this weekend's race as the battle continues to heat up for our riders chasing the overall EWS Championship. We catch up with Ella Conolly in this week's Rider Diary as she continues to make her incredible recovery from that nasty crash earlier in the season. But before all of that, sometimes listening to racers and commentators at an Enduro World Series race can feel like they are speaking a different language. A mix of technical terms and bike racer slang can be confusing if you're new to watching EWS racing. We headed out on track to quiz some of the racers to try and clear up that language barrier.
Homer. What's that?
Liaison.
Meandering from A to B and sometimes past C, then back to B.
Transfer between two stages that we race.
Bottom of stage, top of stage.
The bit of an enduro race.
The way to go to the stage and then get a nice downhill.
We have a designated time to do the whole thing, but it doesn't count towards the end result of the race.
However, the riders can't hang around too much. They have to make their start time for the next stage and they will receive a time penalty if they don't. Pro stage.
That's the stage you want to win.
Pro stage is a special stage we race on the Saturday.
A one-stage effort.
Mini downhill race before the big show.
Probably the hardest day mentally.
Basically the first stage of our race, and it's really nice to get in the mood, and then on Sunday it's the rest of the race.
With only one stage to race that day, the riders can go all out. The winner of this stage is awarded an extra 25 points towards the overall championship. Queen stage.
Normally the most physical stage we have for the weekend.
Big dog.
It's the most significant stage of the race.
The special stage where you can get extra points for the overall.
This stage takes place on the Sunday along with the other stages. Gnarly.
Rocky, rooty, steep.
Technical, rough.
No, that's something that scares you, but it's still fun to ride down.
Gnarly is basically complètement fou in French.
Gnarly is a dangerous section or jump with a high level of risk to the rider. You will often hear riders shout, "That was gnarly," after nearly crashing.
Homer. Freshy.
The dream.
The dream.
It's like powder surfing.
Dirt explosion.
A loamer is a soft and loose dirt but with high levels of grip underneath, and riding one will bring a huge smile to your face. Send.
Going really big.
Like a jump or drop, something when you're in the air.
Let her eat.
Pull the bars and want to see how far you can get.
Sand is basically let's send it, so when you really want to go for it and get in the okay, let's fight mode.
A send is where a rider takes a deep breath and just rides something they are scared of. This could be a jump or a highly technical section.
GG. A massive one. Biggest crash alive.
Mullet.
Business in the front, party in the back.
Deadly set of hair on the back of your head or a small wheel in the back of your bike.
A mullet is basically my bike, so a big wheel in the front, 29, and 27.5 in the back.
Power.
Okay, so maybe not too technical, but perhaps we learned something, or not. Ella Conolly is a rider who had a dream start to the season, winning her first ever EWS in her home country in Scotland at the start of the year. She was on a flyer and right at the pointy end of the championship until a wet route ended her hopes in Val Di Fassa, Trentino, and she was out with a broken elbow. After a speedy recovery, she was back racing in Whistler, and we caught up with her this week to find out how she dealt with the injury and got back on the bike quite so fast.
Take one. I'm Ella Conolly and I race the Enduro World Series for Cannondale. I'm from the Highlands of Scotland and grew up riding bikes, and having a home race to start the season was the best start I think I could have had with a couple of podiums. I just came in like happy, having a good time on the bike, feeling strong. First race stage of the year surprised me to come out second, just behind Izza. And then all through Sunday I didn't even look at the times. I just wanted to focus on what I was riding, what I was racing, so I didn't look at the times. People kept saying little things to me which made me think, well, I must be kind of up there somewhere. But it was a surprise until I crossed the line. I didn't think it would be enough to win my first EWS, but yeah.
What did you do after the win?
Slept. I sat and stared at my medal. Yeah, I was excited to go back to Val Di Fassa. I think the tracks suit me there. It's kind of raw and natural. Practice started pretty well on the first stage of the day. There was a really rooty corner with a bit of a drop in it, and my front wheel caught a big root. I went over the bars and put my arms out, and it was a long way until I landed. I broke the radial head, so just one break, and it was slightly displaced, but there was a good doctor there who managed to do a closed reduction, which they literally just put loads of pressure and push on the bone and make sure the fragments are both aligned. The main motivation to keep pushing through and motivated with the injury was Whistler EWS. I knew I had exactly 6 weeks from when I crashed and broke my elbow to practice for Whistler EWS. If I did enough, that maybe I'd be able to race. I first got back on my bike when we actually flew over this side of the world for the EWS, so I packed all of my bags and my bike, not having ridden yet, and I didn't have big expectations. I knew again that was going to be a difficult mental process, trying to regain the confidence, but in the back of my mind also knowing that I couldn't crash was going to be pretty hard. And the race run went so much better than I thought it would. Again, I managed to totally forget, and then by Sunday race day it was dry, so I think it was only the morning of Sunday race day where I was like, okay, no, I think I can do this, I've got this. So we're at Shakedown now, which is just basically before the race. Everybody goes and rides one track, the media come out too so we can get some clips and everybody can get used to the terrain that we're going to be riding on. And this is what it's all about. Everyone just queuing up, waiting to have their photo taken and waiting for Sven to tell them they can go.
Yo!
Ella, that was sick.
This is day 2. We're about to head out for practice. I feel tired and a bit nervous. It's a bit harder to keep your head in the right place when you're tired. And after the rain yesterday, I think it's going to be pretty slippy on all of the rocks and roots, so it's going to be interesting. I'm running 220 rotors at the moment. Just after I broke my elbow and stuff, it makes a huge difference to arm pump, and over the long stages, if your brakes are always as powerful as possible. So during practice, we ride around the whole course and we get one run down each track. We are allowed to stop and session things, like push up and down sections that we didn't ride very well, but you're only allowed to start and finish each stage once. I want to be back on the podium. And at some point, as soon as I broke my elbow, I thought that was an unrealistic goal, and now it doesn't feel too bad. I felt pretty strong and solid, not like I was pushing too much in Whistler and wasn't too far off the pace. So yeah, that's the goal.
Great to see Ella back at the races so fast, and we wish her luck for the rest of the season. Our EWS racers really do need to be made of tough stuff to make it in this sport. Now it's time to get into what we're all here for and see who took the top honours right here in the Pro Men's and Pro Women's EWS Burke. Racing got underway here at the Burke Mountain Resort in beautiful Vermont yesterday afternoon. The Pro Stage, 2.7 kilometres in length with a vertical drop of just under 500 metres. Rafaela Richter was third for Ibis, just behind Yeti's Bex Barona, but out front there was no catching Ella Conolly. The young Scot definitely cannot be accused of having a quiet season. She won the first round, suffered that elbow injury and is now right back to Pro Stage winning form. That left her with a 5.5 second lead to defend and build upon for day 2. In the Pro Men's race, Ruaridh came third on the stage, just under a second behind the winner of the last round, Jessie Melamed. The champ, Jack Moyer, took the win and was looking ominously fast. Less than a second for Moyer to play with heading into Sunday. Honourable mention needs to go to Jack Menzies too. The privateer was up in 7th. The second day of racing lay ahead and featured a really testing 34-kilometre long course. The second stage was 2.74 kilometres long before a couple of punchy numbers in stages 3 and 4, which are 1.5 and 1.6 kilometres in length respectively. Then a brutal climb back to the top of the mountain for stage 5. The Brits made a good start on the first stage of Sunday. Chloe Taylor went third fastest behind Bex Barona, two Tweed Valley locals making good amongst the slick routes. The overnight leader Ella Conolly was 5th on the stage, but out front, Trek's Hattie Harnden, the winner and whistler, blew them all away by a huge 17.6 seconds. Hattie was into the lead. Jesse Melamed was beaten home by Orbea's Martin Mays, who was third. Ruaridh, racing in front of his family, was second on the stage, but only by 1/10 of a second from the hard-charging Moyer. The third stage, Wayne's World into Black Forest, was 1.6 kilometres in length. America's own Jill Kintner was busy delighting the home crowds with a second on the stage. Bex Barona finished 0.2 of a second ahead of Hattie Harnden on the third stage, but crucially shipped 1.5 seconds to stage winner Morgan Shar. Harnden's lead stayed strong, but it was Barona who was now in second. Could Shar catch them? The second half of the men's top 10 was proving to be ultra competitive, with the likes of Innes Graham and Greg Callahan up and amongst it on stage 3. Richie Rude finished 4th on the stage behind the Rocky Mountain race-face pairing of Remy Govan and Jesse Melamed. But it was still all Moyer out front. The Aussie put 2 more seconds into the pack. The Enchanted Forest beckoned. Stage 4 was the shortest of the day and represented the end to a rapid-fire morning of stages. Martin Mays was in third just behind the yellow plate of Jesse Melamed. Another stage went to Jack Moyer. With 4 stages in the books, he was yet to be defeated and roaring back to form. Ella Conolly was refinding her speed. Hattie Harnden chalked another stage win by 1.6 seconds. That left the overalls looking like this. Harnden's lead was now an imposing 17.2 seconds from Conley. She, however, was just 0.3 of a second ahead of Bex Barona. Jill Kintner was now in 6th, whilst the EWS Whistler podium placer Flo Espinera was in 7th. In the pro men's, Jack Moyer was out front, but as dominant as he'd been, he couldn't afford any mistakes. His lead ahead of Richie Rude was now 5.9 seconds. Whatever pain the overall title leader Isabelle Cordelier was in, she was somehow putting it out of her mind. She was third on the longest stage of the race. Rude Awakening slingshotted Morgan Shar up 2 places in the overall. It wasn't enough to beat Hattie Harnden though. The Trek Factory Racing rider won the penultimate stage of the race by 10.4 seconds. Jesse Melamed was third on the stage, but he was moving backwards at the wrong time. He lost 8.8 seconds to the fastest time on stage 5. Out the front, it was game on. A rewinding of the clocks to 2021, Rude Awakening had lit the blue touch paper, and when your name is in the title, you have to win it. Richie Rude finally took a stage away from Jack Moyer. The Yeti rider, roared on by the American crowd, took 5 seconds out of Moyer's lead. It was now down to less than a second, with 1 more stage to race. Morgan Shar knew that the best form of defence was attack. She pushed hard in the last stage to take the win on it and secure her 2nd place in the overall. Hattie Harnden may not have won the final stage, but she had ridden nearly faultlessly all day and made it back-to-back wins at EWS Burke. Here are those results then from the pro women's race. Harnden conceded the stage to Shar, but only by 3 seconds. Harnden took the overall win by a towering 32.4 seconds ahead of the French woman. Jack versus Richie. It was go time in the USA. Jesse Melamed, the series leader, finished the stage in 6th. It was a result that would land him in 3rd on the podium. Jack Moyer had led the whole way through EWS Burke. He'd been faultless, but the lead had always been slender. On the final stage, with the race in the balance, Richie Rude found 5.8 seconds, enough to take the win on home soil by 4.9. Richie Rude then takes another win in 2022 as his hunt for a 3rd title continues. All that leaves the overall title looking like this. Isbou, against all odds, hangs on to that yellow plate by just 110 points ahead of Morgan Schär. But back-to-back wins sees Hattie Harnden is threatening to join the party out front. Bex Barona is not far behind her. And in the pro men's race, Jesse Melamed also holds on to his yellow plate, but the Jaws music is now on, and Richie Rude is just 190 points off of his lead. Moyer is third ahead of Eddie Masters, whilst his teammate Matt Walker is 8th. There we go then, Ruaridh joining me once again this week. Now, we always say that this one feels like it was going to be action-packed, but that one really was action-packed, wasn't it? Hattie Harnden never looked back after that 17-second stage win.
Yeah, she started the day off strong, didn't she? 17 seconds into the rest of the women on that first stage today. And she just kept the momentum going. I think she won stage 4 also, a commanding win for her, and one that puts her kind of firmly back in that title fight. We've seen her do this before in EWS, not that she's been racing it for that long, but she can get on a bit of a roll, Hattie, and you know, she could yet be a factor in the championship. Yeah, we've got another race in Sugarloaf next week. That's 2 in a row. She won Whistler, Burke today. Yeah, I mean, Isabeau, she seems to be rattled, and rightly so, with that foot injury. Does that open the door for somebody else? You'd have to say Hattie's the main contender at the moment, but Morgan Schär, second place, she's still right in this too. Morgan Schär, as impressive as she was today, Rory. Ella Conolly must be gutted. Mechanical right on the last stage. Yeah, dropped her chain on the last stage. She had an amazing victory on the pro stage yesterday, coming back from that elbow injury, and the conditions yesterday, like, they were so slick. So a huge confidence boost for her, and you know, she was on course for podium and slipped away in the final stage, but she'll have the confidence going into Sugarloaf that pace is back and she'll be fighting for podiums and wins. Well, you definitely can't accuse her of having a boring season anyway. Let's talk about the men's race. Now, if you'd have asked all the staff here at Burke Mountain what would their dream outcome be, it would have been a Richie Rude win. He did it in some style, didn't he? Right on the last stage. That's the way to do it. Yeah, he left it late in the day. Jack Moore won the first 4 stages, but Richie was just there every time. He could only ever get a second, half a second, and although he had those 4 stage wins, coming into the penultimate stage, it was only 4.5 seconds. Richie won that. It was down to 0.9 going into the final stage, and with all the pressure on his shoulders, he delivered an amazing win for Richie, and you know, one that's, you know, got to put him right back in this title fight. Jesse Melamed, of course, we should mention, does leave here still with the yellow plate. He leaves here with his championship lead intact. He won his home round. Richie's won a home round. If you're Jesse, you're on the box today. Happy with that? I think so. I mean, we talk about a distant third. It was probably only 10 or 15 seconds, but you felt after stage 5 when he was 10, 12 seconds back that third was kind of going to be where he was going to end up. I mean, he's still got that buffer to the kind of 4th and 5th place guys, but, you know, at the same time, I'd imagine there'd be a lot of emotions after last week, a lot of pressure on his shoulders. It's suddenly onto Richie, who's delivered on home turf. You know, will we see Jack take the win in Sugarloaf? I think he's fighting his way back up there, and, you know, we'll see him on top of the box before the season's out. I have a quiet feeling that Jack Moyer could well be one of the deciding factors in this championship this year. If he starts doing what he did all weekend here and taking points away from the two guys that are going for it, anything could happen. We need to say honourable mention as well. Jack Menzies, Prince of the Privateers, right up there in the top 10 again. Someone needs to get him snapped up, don't they? Not the first time this year either. He's quietly putting together a really, really incredible season, and like you said, a privateer, you know, doing it all himself. Once again, different venue, incredible ride, and yeah, he's excited to see what he can do in future years. Now, we've seen today that enduro races are often won by the finest of margins. Rory has very kindly donated some of his time to talk about some of the key points out on the stages this weekend. Vermont is famed for its rugged and rough terrain. Roots, rocks and Mother Nature always throwing the unexpected at the world's best here at EWS Burke. Saturday's pro stage used the upper J-Bar trail featuring the infamous coffin section. Overnight rain on Thursday led to some treacherously tricky conditions. There's lots of line choice, but none of them were particularly inviting, although the roots, the rocks, the off-cambers caught more than a few people out. This section featured 3 main lines: You can go up round the tree and get a straighter exit over the infamous coffin feature itself, or pick your way across that tricky off-camber between the two. Whilst there were some adventurous line choices out there, nearly all the pros opted for the middle line. Pick your way across the stump, the off-camber rocks, set yourself up and drive into the next right-hand corner. Cannondale's Ella Conolly made short work of this section, picked away across that off-camber rock, over the top of the stump, feet up, very smooth, and walked away with a pro stage win. While the majority of the pros chose the line between the tree and the rock, Basil Weber proves here that the crowd pleaser line up and over the coffin isn't that much slower. The right-hander after the coffin sections led riders into this treacherous off-camber rock. Momentum was key here. The faster you hit it, the more chance you have to get across it. Ruaridh leaping up high in order to give himself the best chance of that inside line on the fallen left-hand corner. Whilst not as dramatic as the rocks in the upper part of the mountain, the lower stages 2, 3 and 4 had plenty of line choice available as well. Just a simple right-hand corner like this had 3 lines to it. The king of the inside line, Sam Hill, doing what he does best. Whilst only separated by a couple of feet, these little options give riders chances to miss holes, square up corners, carry momentum. Greg Callahan opting for that inside line. Hattie Harnden choosing somewhere in the middle. It obviously didn't hold her back. She won stage 2 by 17 seconds. Stage 5, aptly named Rude Awakening, had these really big compressions coming off a high-speed piste section. Riders right saw some steeper compressions into the woods, more direct, but they were harsh if you got them wrong. Timing was everything here. Jesse Melamed, one of the most committed riders on the circuit, decided that not being on the ground is the best option. Although the left line was smoother, riders had to be precise. Get slightly offline in the bottom and there was a big hole waiting to catch you. Unfortunately for Shram Nootpoof's Elliot Heap, he found that hole and found himself on the ground. Although the objective is always to get from point A to point B as fast as possible, the most direct line isn't always the fastest. Here we see the top 3 riders all choosing this longer line round this right-hand corner in order to preserve speed along the flat section that followed. One of the hundreds of line choice decisions they'll have to make throughout a day racing the EWS.
Thanks for joining us this week for the EWS Burke. What a show this place put on. Next week, we will be back with even more racing, and we're staying right here in the USA for another brand new venue. The EWS Travelling Circus will decamp overnight and head just a couple of hours down the road to Sugarloaf in Maine, where the riders will be taking on some fresh hand-cut trails where I expect we will be in for a very special race. We'll see you there. Thanks for watching.